Hi, and welcome to Flux from Rocketstock. In this brief video tutorial, I'll be showing you how to choose some transitions and customize them, and then how to import them into your non-linear editor of choice. So let's go ahead and jump right in. When you first open up the After Effects file, you'll probably be greeted with a message something like this. If you are, just click OK. What we see here is something we call the scene options, and if you move the playhead, you'll see nothing changes. This here is just to let you see the colors that are chosen, and that's all you're going to customize in this project other than adding in your own footage. But we'll get to that in a moment. First of all, let's take a look at the project panel. Here we see 00 assets down to 03 export zone. Don't worry about project construction. Assets is just a place where we're going to put the footage that we import. Modify images and video is where we will place in the footage that we've imported and choose the corresponding transition. Scene options is where we are now. And export zone is where we will render out our final piece, but it's also where we're going to choose the transition that we want. And I'm going to do that now. So when we open up this folder, export zone, transitions, either the 720 or the 1080, doesn't matter, just choose your resolution. In this case, I'm going to choose 1080. And if we just scroll this down a little bit, we'll see we have the 20 different transitions. So the first step you want to do is to choose the transition that you want to use. Now, if we go through a few, we can preview some. Let's just check out number one right away. And if we do a RAM preview, we can see what it's going to look like. Your footage will be in the middle here once we've imported it. Let's take a look at number two. Same thing. Okay, let's take a look at number three. And so on. Now the trick here is just to find the transition that you like, and I quite like this one and this one, as they're mirrors of the same thing, which gives a little bit of consistency. So in this case, let's choose transition 2 and transition 3. And so I'm going to close up transition 1. Okay, so now what we have open is scene options, transition 2, and transition 3. Great. What does that mean? Okay, we need now to go to modify images and video, and we know that we're choosing transition 2 and transition 3, so we know that we're going to be using these two. So I'm going to open those up also. There we go. So what we need to do now is import the video that will transition in within your video. So to do that, let's close these up, and let's hit Command or Control I to import. Okay, here we have some of our footage. Okay, so I'm going to import 2 clips right now. You can hold down Control or Shift and you'll select 2, and I'll hit Import. Let's go to our Modify Image Video 2, which was for Transition 2. Let's take in our footage and just drag it in. There we go. Okay, if you move the playhead here, you just see the video, and that's fine. Because what's happening is Transition 2 from your Export Zone folder is what's being affected. As you can see, our footage moves in. And this black area here, if we do things correctly, will be an alpha channel. It will be empty, like this. So what we're going to do is render out this video, this transition, with an alpha channel, and then just lay it on top of your existing footage within your video editor. So I'm just going to RAM preview this quickly so you can see. Now, if you imagine that this transparency grid here is your existing footage within your video, then this is your transition coming in with your footage. Okay, cool. Let's do the same thing for number 3. So remember, let's go to image video 3. Let's take our other footage and drag it in. There we go. And again, if you just play this, it'll just look like the video. But what we want to do is go to the transition 03. And here we can see it working. And again, if you want to see the transparency grid, just click here. You get an idea of what you're going to be dealing with. Cool. Very straightforward. But these colors don't really match. So what we do now is go back to scene options. We just want to choose some colors that match the theme that we're working with. So I'm going to click on the scene options layer, and then I'm going to go to Window, Effect Controls, and that will bring up our panel. Now when we go back to our transition, you can see that there's some very prevalent colors of blue, white, and red here. I want to use those. So I'm going to go back to scene options. I'm going to choose a blue. I'm going to choose a white, and then I'm going to choose orangey red. Now when we go back to our transition, we can see it's playing the same theme. I'm going to orange this up a little bit more though. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Yep, I like that. And that's the power of this pack. You can quickly customize colors to complement your footage. And as we can render out each one of these individually, you can make different colors for all of them. It doesn't matter, you're not locked in with the same colors. Okay, so you've chosen the files that you want to use. You've chosen transitions that you want to use. And all you need to do is export them. Now before we render these out, there's something small I should point out. We've given you 30 seconds of playtime in here to give you versatility. But that's not necessary for most instances. What a more efficient trick to do is allow the transition to go and then cut the render after it's finished. And then we'll just overlay this over the top of your existing footage at the same time code. So to keep things clean, I'm going to move the playhead to around 3 seconds, which is here. And then I'm going to hit N on the keyboard to crop the work area. But you can do it manually here too. If you hold down Shift, it'll snap. There we go. Now this area here is telling After Effects that you want to render just this. So all we want really is our alpha channel, our transition, and our full frame footage. And then we'll just layer this over the top. A nice quick little trick. And I'm going to do the same thing with transition 3. Let's get to around 3 seconds after the transition is finished. And then I'm going to adjust the work area to correspond with that. Now, when we add these two compositions to the render queue, it's only going to render out this piece. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Click on your export composition, add to render queue. Let's click on the output module. Now this is very important. We want to choose a format and a codec that respect the alpha channel. If we don't do this, instead of having your footage visible underneath the transition, you'll just have an area of black when it comes in, and we don't want that. So let's go ahead and choose QuickTime. Then under format options, you need to make sure that you have JPEG 2000 selected. Often you'll use H.264, but in this case, because we need an alpha channel, we're going to select JPEG 2000. Good. And now this is very important. Within video output channels, you need to choose RGB plus alpha or RGB plus A, depending on your version of After Effects. We don't have audio, so I'm just going to turn that off, but that's not that important. Let's click OK. Now we just need to choose a location. Let's click on the file name. That's fine. I'll click Save. And now let's add in Transition 03 in the same way. Let's click on the composition. Let's go to composition in the menu. Let's go add to render queue. And then click on the output module. Again, we need to choose QuickTime. And we need to make sure within format options that we have JPEG 2000 selected. Very important. And then equally important, we need to go to channels, RGB plus A or RGB plus alpha. Otherwise we'll have no alpha channel and that won't work. So we're going to turn off audio also. Click OK. And again, just going to choose a file location. That's fine. And now because these are both queued in the render queue, you can just hit render and it'll do it all at once. So let's do that now. And that sound means that we're done. So next we're going to move into a nonlinear editor. In this case, I'm going to be using Adobe Premiere Pro. So let's jump right in there. And all I have here is a simple sequence with some footage of a barber. And I've also imported our two transitions that we created, Transition 2 and Transition 3. So let's go ahead and grab it, drag it here. Now you can see, if we drag the playhead, our transition works perfectly, and that's because we use JPEG 2000 and the RGB plus alpha channel, and that's great. But as you remember, we cut this down at 3 seconds to save on render time. So all that means that we need to do now is make sure we align the playhead at the beginning of the transition, and then find the appropriate clip that we used within the transition, which was this. Then we just drag this underneath. That's just one last thing to do. We wait for our transition to move to the end, and then we trim this. That way, we have our original footage, we have our overlaid transition footage with the alpha channel, and then we subtly switch over to our proper footage, which will then run the length that it needs to. Now you could do this by leaving this footage within the original composition, but that means longer render times, and it also means you're limited to 30 seconds, and this is just a much quicker and easier way of doing it. And once you get in the habit of doing this, it all becomes very quick and easy. So let's go ahead and transition to our other transition. We can do that by grabbing Transition 3. We'll put it about here. And we'll see the footage that we transitioned into here. The new transition coming in, which is great. And then all we need to do is the same thing we just did. Let's use the same footage that we did within After Effects, which is here, and make sure we align it properly. And then again, we're just going to cut it when the transition is done. So here we'll do. And now we have our original, transition to second footage, transition, third footage, and that's it. The same exact principles apply to all the other 18 transitions that we didn't use. And you can go ahead and choose any of them. And if you render them out individually, you can choose different colors within the scene options. And as you can see, within minutes, you can add interesting customized transitions to your footage. If you have any questions, just email support@rocketstock.com, or you can visit our website where we have a number of video tutorials and FAQs. And thanks for choosing Rocketstock.